All right, so the next slide right here is perception and reality, and that's why I have this titled as, because perception is different than reality. Again, with video technology, we're able to see what the reality is and how to be able to fix problems and solutions and come up with solutions in our field. One of our largest issues in the transportation industry is speed. And it's not necessarily speed in those high speed zones, right, on an interstate. It's when we're getting off the roadway. And on that big, off of that big interstate roadway and getting on into the back roads. So right here, what do we see in this slide right here? We see 51 miles an hour. When we showed the slide and played the video, what was the speed zone? 35. Now this was the kicker for us. And of course, the part where we worry about litigation and issues and lawsuits. What's one of the things that you see in the video that would be a red flag indicator for our safety guys? Where's he at?
School zone.
School zone. Yeah. So bus is over here on the right and school over here on the right, and he's going 51 in a 35-mile-an-hour school zone. Wow. Those are the issues we want to know about, right? Those are the issues we want to discuss. Those are the issues we want to correct. How can we protect our business? Again, Dennis talked about being able to, 70% of all accidents, it's about 72% of all collisions, at least at Schugle, is not our fault. So four-wheelers' fault. Okay? So how can we protect our business? Again, through video technology. We're in inclement weather several months out of the year. We have to deal with these types of accidents on a regular basis and a routine basis. How easy is it to defend yourself when you're in an inclement weather situation? First of all, the thing that we always get hammered on is we're driving too fast for conditions, right? Just because we're a big truck to begin with. Well, here we can see with our speed indicator, you see over in the bottom right corner, our speed is 48. We're in a 65-mile-an-hour zone. We're already reduced. Right? We're driving professionally. Our hand is in the perfect spot. Our other hand is on the gear shifter, ready to change gears and be ready for anything. We're actively looking and moving our eyes. We're doing everything that a professional driver is supposed to do. Now, when that chaos happens, how do we react? And what do we do? We get picked apart during litigation on how our driver reacts. Well, now we have video technology to be able to support our drivers. To be able to say, look, we did everything right. And let's play this video again. And we're going to play 2 or 3 seconds of it, and then we'll break it on down again. Now, we could always muddy the word quarterback, right? And go on back and say, hey, we're making a lane change. Play another second or two of it. There we go. If we didn't make a lane change, where would contact be made? Could the accident have been avoided 100% and even keep it from occurring? Maybe. But how many of us watch NASCAR? How easy is it for those guys to avoid it? And again, they're dealing with nothing but professionals. Right? And they wreck all day long. That's why we watch them. Right? So, how can we protect our driver? Right here through the video technology, we're able to see that the driver looked in his mirrors before making that heavy lane change and that hard lane change. We see that he reduced his speed. He's already down to 40 miles an hour. He's going to reduce the speed even more before impact. He did the appropriate response. He didn't lock him up and jackknife and cause more issues. He's maintaining control of his vehicle and coming to a controlled stop. That's what video technology is able to do and prove for us to be able to fight litigation claims. What have we seen? We started our installation of DriveCam back in July. When we first started with it, all we did was install them. We didn't do any coaching at all. So we installed them very quickly. After we installed them, you can see where we started coaching and that immediate reduction in driver behavior. Speeding events dropped 35% for us. And again, just being a safety guy and a numbers guy, I always want to look at speed events and probability, right? Probability of collisions. If I could slow my fleet down 2 or 3 miles an hour, my impact is less severe, injuries are less severe, and then of course I just have less probability of CSA violations for speed or unsafe category. We're also able to identify the risk in the fleet. Again, in the past, without having some kind of analytic technology, we're doing our safety programs and conducting safety programs to 100% of the drivers. Everyone has to go through this. Well, 100% of your drivers might not have issues with this one thing. And we were able to find out that even though we had lots of speed events, most of our speed events were caused by about 7% of our drivers. So where are we going to focus our efforts? Are we going to focus on 600, or are we going to focus our efforts on the ones that need it? So this, of course, the drive cam and the analytics side of the drive cam gives us the ability to focus in and work on coaching individual drivers with their individual behaviors that need resolved. Wolf is probably one of my biggest drivers that have had a change in behavior. He's a contractor, so it even makes it a little bit more difficult, right, for ownership and responsibility of that contractor. But you can see right here, this is a 2-week period. He had 15 events, I'm sorry, in a 1-week period, 15 events in a 1-week period. So he was averaging just over 2 critical events a day registered on the drive cam. We spoke to him. We talked about those events. This is the previous 30 days of his events. And we see over here in the frequency category, it might be a little difficult for you to see, it says 72 in 30 days. So he had 72 speed events, critical events in 30 days. And after our coaching, what did he have? 0. Immediate improvement, immediate change in behavior. He recognized by showing him videos of how he performed, he recognized his mistakes and he changed. In fact, now he's about 3 or 4 weeks into the coaching. He's had 5 events in almost 4 weeks now, and that's it, compared to 72 in the previous month. Here's some of his behavior before coaching. This truck was governed at 72, and you can see he was pretty much capping out at that 72. I know it's difficult to see. We can see his average speed was 63 miles an hour. Now this is where I hit the contractors at. His MPGs were 6.48. After our coaching, after we talked to him about speed, issues, and probability of collisions, how he could change his own destiny, we see right here. After he slows his average speed down to 65, down to 63. After that, you see that the overall road speed, even though it's a big reduction in big top-end speed, he only loses 2 miles an hour. So he's reduced his speed almost 10 miles an hour, but only loses an average of 2. So slower is faster. I teach a class on that. We'll talk about that later. Okay? But the big result is MPG. He shot up his MPG up to 7.59. Then looking at it over the last 4 weeks now, he's over 8.2 is what his MPGs have increased over the last 4 weeks. That's huge. 7.59 MPGs over a year is $8,200 in fuel in his pocket. Now we translate that to company. And if you can get your company drivers to reduce their speed and have better behavior, how much are you not only going to save in probabilities of reduced accidents and collisions, but also in your other things such as fuel and maintenance. And that's one of the things that we want to delve into and dive into. We want to get to that next level in safety. And video technology gives us that next degree. So right here, we compare last year, January, to this year, January, year over year. We reduced a 45% reduction in preventable claims. Year over year, we reduced our speeding violations 35%. We increased our MPGs about 3.5% overall. We're correcting the driver behavior, though, and that's the focus. We want to keep our drivers. They're precious. Let's help them. Let's coach them. And let's teach them so we can retain them. We identify drivers that care about safety. You're gonna find out which ones care and which ones don't, right? Just like TO, football. Right? Who cares and who doesn't? Practice. Who needs practice? Right? Isn't that what he said 35 times or something in 2.5 minutes? Right? You're able to identify those guys and say, okay, hey, look, I'm sorry. You're not going to work out in our culture. We're going to part ways. But the majority of the time, guys want to do better, right? And if they see what they're making mistakes in, and they learn from that, then obviously they're a better driver, and they're a better driver for us as a company as well. And then finally knowing what happened in that crash, in that critical event. litigious environment that we're in, we got to know right off the very beginning. And it's so important at the very beginning to find out if we're going to be liable or not liable. Do we want to defend and spend money on defenses or not?
From the audience, what kind of questions do you have for Clay or Dennis regarding the presentations today?
I know enough about this just to be dangerous, so just a couple clarifications here. The gentleman that made the turn in the terminal, do these devices, do you know if the signal is on or off?
You could actually hear, there is audio as well, so you could hear some of the music in the other one. You could actually hear the turn signal, the click, 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 click. So we knew his turn signal was activated.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Second question is in reference to your coaching and mentors. Do you use these during the coaching and mentoring process?
Yes, we do. We use the videos in order to coach and mentor. There were some videos that we get the authorization from the driver to be able to add into our orientation program and our other remedial training programs. So then we could actually show their face and be able to see where they're looking at. And of course, you know, when a driver is doing something right, he wants to be proud of it anyway. So he's, oh yeah, go ahead, show my video, right? So we're able to use those in all sorts of different tools and techniques, whether it's remedial training, onboard training, or individual training with the driver.
Pretty much the same thing. I mean, the driver, we review the footage with him first, or her, and then if we see it fit to be used in our safety training process, and that's one of the things we require 10 hours of safety training with our drivers each year. So we have varied footage throughout the training the safety training process. I mean, we may use speed, we may use backing. I mean, there's different things that we do in using the footage. I mentioned earlier today we actually have on our network probably about 40 clips that are used quite a bit for training and retraining and I guess to make drivers feel comfortable, seeing events that exonerate drivers as well. So we use the footage quite a bit.
The fear of the driver having that camera watching him all the time. Did either of you have it? Is that a problem with recruiting? Or once you instituted, did you have an excess of people leaving because they didn't want to be monitored all the time?
Yeah, so just to start, I guess it's a critical event recorder. So that's one of the things that we really focus on. It's not a webcam. We can't get in there and just look inside at the truck and see what the driver's doing. We're only interested in those critical events that occur to modify and maybe learn and teach certain behaviors. So once they understand that, and you know, there's plenty of video out there to be able to support that, and once they understand how the system works, then you get that driver buy-in pretty quick. Because essentially we are trying to help them, right? We want to keep them with us. That's our ultimate goal, is to keep everyone and teach them if we can.
You know, the more people that use the systems, drivers will become more acclimated. We were an early adopter, and so our drivers told us they went on, at that time it was DriveCam, they went on the DriveCam site and they could tell us all about the camera. They were telling us things that was on the site we never saw or never heard. But we had to dispel the rumors. Sometimes we would have to pull that person that was out spreading the rumor in front of multiple people and pretty much let him know that what he was spreading was falsehood. And you know, you had to shame a few people. Again, we were the early adopters, so it was a little more difficult for us. We had threats of people leaving. You know, maybe one or two, I always share those are probably the one or two that might need to be leaving anyway, because you may find things with them that you wouldn't want to find. Again, the best thing is to try to use it positive and work through a coaching. You can't have someone you continue to coach 100 times that he's ran stop signs or stoplights and he has that serious accident, because let me tell you, that will be the time that, you know, all that stuff comes out. You know, deposition and discovery. So you got to really work, either determine whether they are coachable and coach them, or make a separation. There's always a fear of people leaving, and we have trucks available, but if you remember my first comments, you know, we have a culture of safety and family, and I'll have empty trucks before I'll have an unsafe person in a truck.
I wondered how useful these devices would be at a driver training school, a truck training school. Any comments on that?
I've had drive cams for 3.5 years roughly, and I began with 15 of them and put them in my trainer truck. We had them for 3 years. We ended up training over 150 drivers over that 3-year period. So people were already somewhat familiar with the drive cams to begin with. We were able to, again, use them as our spokesmen and ladies, for the rest of the fleet as well, to let them know, look, yeah, this is true. What J&R is saying is true. We're not using spy cams. We're not doing anything like that. And then also to be able to sort of kind of tell them what the expectations are of it, right? Because those students and those trainers would say, hey, look, I didn't have an event for 13 weeks. You didn't even set it off. So it's not like you're going to, you should have a lot of events, right? So if you're doing everything that you should be doing, don't worry about it, and it's here to protect you. And of course, we got several videos to be able to show them during those training and education tools before we implemented it in the whole fleet.
It's kind of interesting because, we've run an 8-week finishing program for many years. And in fact, we presented an award last year to a driver 25 years with us that went through the program early on. But, we deployed in the trainer trucks or our trainers that we had that were taking these drivers out for the 8-week program. And we didn't see a lot of things happen. Much like Clay said, they didn't have the events. Typically, in that 8-week program, typically you're going to see the minor scraping, the sides, the tank fairing or something. When I think back, we've had very few crashes that involve that trainer trainee. Now, what it will tell you, you may have a trainer out there that doesn't need to be training.
I think it would be a wonderful tool at an entry-level training facility. I think it'd be wonderful.
And very well could, and even in a school environment is, I think, where you're saying, and you could reference back to what Clay was saying, you could take them in there, show them the footage, but it has to trip, there has to be an event that trips the event recorder. So it's not that continuous recording that you can go and look and say, here's 8 hours of video.
And we need to be able to teach the driver if his form and technique is off. And what's the best way for people to do that? But again, and it is all fractions of a second, right? A baseball pitch happens in, half a second, right? So all those fundamentals that need to occur, sometimes it just needs to be a little tweak of one fundamental. And instead of focusing your efforts on, let's say, a backing accident and 30-some triggers that need to happen during a backing accident, let's find out what happened during that accident and fix that 1 or 2 things that maybe were missed and focus on those things rather than all 30. Right? Because what I always get, at least from a driver, is, look, I've been driving for 25 years. I made 10,000 right-hand turns in the last year. You can't tell me how to turn right. I know how to do it. You do. That's why I'm not going to focus on that. I just want to focus on the behavior. You know how to do it. I just want you to do it all the time now. So here's where you accidentally made a mistake, and here's where you slipped.
Can you tell me how many man hours a month or a week that you're spending watching videos and with the 600 truck fleet as a full-time person, multiple people watching these videos, and how many hours are you coaching?
I have 3 safety managers that manage our fleet. 1 safety manager is specifically for all of our contractors, 150 of those. 1 safety manager, the other 2 just divide up our company fleet. They spend on average 5 drivers a day of coaching and communicating, about an hour apiece.
In our group, as Clay mentioned, we decided again to operate this from our operations and not our safety department. Our safety department gets involved in when it comes to disciplinary actions, and it's more for just documenting those and making sure that they're properly handled. But I mentioned earlier we have about 60 a week. We have 11 people. We have a 12th person that is actually the ops manager, so he's reviewing maybe all of the guys' videos or some of the worst ones. So you're only looking at 5 or so a week with 60 events for each of them, 5 to 6. So they're spending less than an hour a week. Now, it may be that you do 1 or 2 on Monday. It may be that you do a couple on Wednesday or Friday or Thursday, whatever day, but no more than an hour. So we may have, with all the people involved, we may have 12 to 15 man hours at the most involved. the key thing is that, for a person, a coach, to have less events that happen. I mean, train, coach, and reduce your event count. And that's the less events, the less coaching.
And we talk about, obviously some of the negative behaviors, but I think both of you referenced also the positive. And how do you recognize, or do you have programs that also emphasize the positive of the programs and really the importance of them being safe?
You have the driver scorecard, and we referenced that in one of the slides in there. We take that driver scorecard on a weekly basis, and we send that out to the driver. And you said our motto is keep it green. So a message comes on now and says, hey, keep it green. And how have you performed the last week? Have you kept it green? And how many weeks have you kept it clean and kept it green? So have no critical events, or if you have one event, it'll tell you the number of events that you had. We tie that with safety points, so if they keep it green, they get 560 points a week. If they have one trigger event, then it's 250 safety points. If they don't have any, or if they have multiple trigger events, then they lose their safety points for that week. So they have pretty good incentive to be able to keep it green, essentially, and not trigger the camera. On the in-house side, for my 3 trainers, we're an ESOP company, we're employee owned, so every dollar saved is a dollar in their pocket. So I think we have great incentive in-house just being an employee-owned company.
Our industry is one, it's always been managed by exception for the most part, and that's the hardest thing. We started a program years ago, and we call it the Extra Mile program, awarding drivers for going over and above, and it's the mindset, and we haven't got there yet, but we're working on it. We want to have a program that we're actually recognizing the drivers through good behavior with this program, with the Lytx Drive Cam. So we're not there, but we hope to get there. We are doing better with printing the certificates. The system allows you to print whenever there is good behavior, allows you to actually print certificates, and we are doing some of that. But I'm kind of inclined to think from my role that maybe we're not doing as well as we'd like to. We probably have some that are doing a better job than others, so we need to have some type of program that we have some uniformity and know that we're recognizing across the entire fleet in doing that. As I mentioned, we had 41 drivers that drove the entire year. As we did safety safety certificates this year, we actually worked with Lytx and got some type of seal that those 41 drivers on their safety certificate received that seal. And somebody's like, well, what's that seal worth? But for a driver, they do look at it. I've heard, over the years that, a driver we have with us that's, 20-some years that they've got all those certificates saved, and they really appreciate them. I wish we did a little bit more, again, and recognize them, because for some people it does mean a lot.
It's hard to get the safety guy out of me, so I'll ask another question. When it comes to that interaction, so obviously with technology, video technology, sitting down in front of that driver or interacting with the driver, how has that been now that you have the video? And it's probably a 2-part question, because obviously your fleets are a little bit different. I know JNR, you're out for several weeks, so do you take advantage of the remote coaching? Do you try to get them into a face-to-face? Dennis, I know yours is a little bit different as well, but so how is that reaction been? Is it sort of the eye-opening now that you have, you're right there in the cab with them? And then what kind of steps have you taken to get that to them quick enough, like I said, the remote options?
And I'll play it a few times and say, what do you think when you see it? But a lot of times that's not conducive in our environment over the road area or the route. So we do have the Qualcomm, and through the OmniTrack system, we're able to send our videos over the media manager. So that driver could pull it on up in the media manager. We could actually do over the phone coaching more often, and have him be able to look at his video while we're over the phone with him, rather than bringing him out a route through a terminal, trying to waste all that time and energy and precious miles from that driver. And get that coaching event out as quick as we can.
Gary, we're doing some remote coaching without actually the video, and that's something that, after I leave here, we need to get more involved with. and maybe need to talk with Clay a little bit more on that aspect as well. We have certain coaching events that have to be face-to-face. Then there's others that we're okay to do remote. Again, we're not, with some of those, we're not looking at the video at this time, but I do want it to be at that level, that we are looking at the video.
Well, I definitely want to take the opportunity to thank both Dennis and Clay for their presentation. If you do want to speak to them a little bit longer, they obviously will be here, but also they'll be at the Lytx booth tomorrow during the exhibition. So with that, I want to thank you for the opportunity to let us speak to all of you, so thank you.